You're listening to the Infinite Banking Mastery Podcast. Did you know that you could build a tax-free pool of wealth that's liquid and accessible all your life while building your retirement nest egg? Gain full control of your financial future and stop relying on the government and banks. The wealthy have already discovered this wealth-building secret. Now it's your turn to get financially secure without following the conventional wisdom that keeps you in debt to banks. Now here's your host, Valerie LaRocque.
Well, hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Infinite Banking Mastery Podcast. Wow, I cannot believe it's already Christmas next week. It came so fast. I was telling someone the other day that I am starting to see a little better now why they bring the Christmas decorations out so early at the stores. I feel like it's August when they bring them out. And it's because you put them up and it feels like you immediately have to bring them down. It is so fast. So I'm kind of saying I've had friends who were decorating even before Thanksgiving this year, which I thought was funny. I might have to jump on that bandwagon. I don't know. I just feel like it's so fast. And I absolutely love Christmas. Every year I host a whole waffle breakfast for my family, my sister, my brother, and their families, and my parents, and my kids love it. And it's super great. So I'm very much looking forward to it. And I love the whole holiday season. Whether you're having a big get together or a quiet, peaceful Christmas, I hope it's wonderful for you. So today I thought that this week I would cover a topic that has been floating around out there for a few weeks now, whom a client also suggested that I do a podcast on, and this is the Kyle Busch story. Some of you may have heard what's going on with the Kyle Busch story, that he is a stock car race driver and that he has a lawsuit currently against a company, Pacific Life Company, for the millions of dollars in premiums that he was charged for his indexed universal life policies. Unfortunately, there have been many lawsuits against IUL policies in recent years, and it seems to be increasing. But this is a big one. It's been out there a lot. I've been seeing article after article on it, so I thought I would share my thoughts on it. As I was reading one article on the lawsuit, I saw the words safe self-funding investment vehicles as one of the ways the policies were described to Kyle. What I didn't like about that statement is how it said self-funding, because oftentimes when these policies are being explained to clients, they are told that they can stop funding at a certain age because the policy will have enough value and enough growth, and it can carry itself from there. They can stop funding and that the policy will not only continue to grow, but that they can take cash flow from it in their retirement years. Now, with whole life, you actually can stop funding that policy anytime after basically year 10, or maybe a little sooner, and the policy will continue to grow on a guaranteed basis. Because whole life policies come with a feature that allows you to, quote, pay them up. They're called reduced paid up. This restructures the death benefit to be bought and paid for by the cash value in your account. Your cash value will continue to grow, and your death benefit, after initially dropping, when you reduce pay up, your death benefit will initially drop, but not your cash value. And then they both will continue to grow from there. So this would work with whole life, although I wouldn't really call it self-funding. But if you look at the guarantee on an IUL, an indexed universal life policy, after funding has stopped, the guarantee will very likely run out in the middle of your potential retirement years. That means it's possible for your cash to run out and your death benefit to be canceled. Being that the costs inside of an IUL policy only rise with age, I don't know why anyone would call it a self-funding vehicle, because they have no idea what your cash value will actually do over your lifetime, nor how high the internal costs will increase. With whole life, there is no increase in costs as you age. The cost has already been factored in and then evenly distributed throughout the premiums that you'll pay over your lifetime in that policy, however long the premiums are meant to be paid. And so if you want to stop funding, you can, and there will be no increasing costs eating away your cash. In fact, I think even more common would be that you would have to increase your payments to your index universal life policy rather than being able to discontinue funding. Another thing that stood out to me was how at 10 years, the policy's cash value would be less than 50% of premiums paid, and it went down from there. Yikes, I don't even know how he shared this illustration without the person seeing some of this stuff. I don't know. I'm really interested to see what it looked like. Usually with IULs, the available cash value is less than it would be with the same premiums paid into a whole life as far as how much cash value you have access to, unless the agent who built your whole life didn't structure it to have a decent cash value in the beginning years, or if the agent couldn't due to your age and or your health. So there are some factors that could cause it to not have as much cash as you would have hoped in those beginning years. But just in general, the available cash value would be less in the first 10 years than in a whole life contract if they are both structured with a goal of cash value growth or having that early cash value availability rather than a higher death benefit. IUL contracts often have riders that would need to be added in order to have access to more cash value in those beginning years, but not everyone adds those riders. And even though it's more normal for Index Universal Life to not have access to as much cash as a whole life per the premiums you've paid in those beginning years, it does sound like this IUL contract was built particularly poorly for this person, unfortunately. So one problem with IUL projections is that inside of an illustration is that it assumes a positive and level crediting rate every single year. And these contracts that come with a floor of 0% and a ceiling that you cannot earn above. And those ceilings, again, as I mentioned before, can change every year. So in the years when the market might have a 0% return or when it's negative, your contract is crediting nothing in that year, but the expenses are still coming out. In addition, the illustration you're looking at with the average rate of return that they are illustrating is definitely guaranteed not to happen. It's not going to happen that you're going to receive that very perfect average that they're showing every single year in and out, because you're going to receive different returns every single year depending on the index that you select and what the return is for that year. You're simply not going to receive a level crediting rate every single year that you're alive. It will definitely bounce around, and this will make a difference within your contract. For more on this topic, you can check out my podcast on actual versus average, which aired on October 12th, 2023. You know, it's funny too, because I wanted to see what did AI have to say about this whole story. So I'm just going to read to you what Copilot shared with me when I asked about this lawsuit that's happening, and as compared to what an IBC practitioner would do. And so it said, Kyle Busch's IUL life policy was reportedly structured in a manner that prioritized maximizing the death benefit. Typically, such policies are built by agents focusing on illustrating attractive returns and long-term cash value, but may involve higher costs and less emphasis on liquidity in the early years. In contrast, an infinite banking practitioner would design the policy, most often using whole life insurance. I'm so glad even Copilot knows we use whole life, with a focus on maximizing early cash value and minimizing the death benefit relative to premium. This approach allows for efficient policy loans and access to capital, making the policy function as a personal banking system. The emphasis is on high early liquidity, lower internal costs, and using the policy for ongoing financing needs, rather than solely as an investment or for death benefit purposes. And of course, remember, life insurance is not an investment. It is an asset. Copilot goes on to say, the key difference lies in the intent and structure. Busch's IUL was built for potential accumulation and illustrated performance, while infinite banking policies are engineered for optimal cash flow and banking utility from the outset. Okay, so I just want to mention that I'm really impressed with Copilot. I thought that it did a pretty good job of explaining that. But back to the article I read, it pointed out that the contract for Kyle was manipulated in several ways to maximize the agent's compensation. Now, that's unfortunate. Whereas we IBC practitioners, we do the exact opposite. We are purposely squeezing down the death benefit to a reasonable level and according to your particular situation and goals. When the death benefit is lower, that affects the cost of the policy directly because the death benefit is the basis of the cost. So we are lowering the death benefit, which lowers the cost and also our compensation because it's directly tied to the cost and all of that. So now different people have different goals. And usually when I talk to podcast listeners, you guys are looking for the cash value to be as high as possible in the early years. Although for some of you, it's more important to have more cash value in your older years. And then there's some of you who are so focused on the highest possible cash value you can get in the beginning years that you are suggesting a structure that would put your contract at MEC risk, which means all withdrawals of any gain, whether it be a loan or a straight withdrawal, would be taxable. And by building a contract this way, it will yield less cash value in the future than you could have had. And that might be just the time you really need access to some cash income tax free. Since in the future, we don't know what the tax rates will be, but most likely they will be higher. It will be important at that time to have a pool of cash you can access tax free. And I would think probably the more the better. However, either way, the policy can be structured to support your goals and what you intend to do with it. So yeah, I wanted to highlight some of the things I read while looking into this. And again, it sounds like this is an example of a very poorly written contract. So you for sure want to know your agent knows what he or she is doing, that they have your best interest at heart, and that they are structuring your policy in a safe and sturdy way that will grow efficiently, and also not using IULs for the purpose of the infinite banking concept. If you happen to want that advisor to be me, I would be happy to meet you, learn more about how I can help, and build something specific to your goals and needs. If you would like to work with me, feel free to reach out to me at Valerie@alphaomegawealth.com. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you have a wonderful and relaxing time over the rest of our holiday season. Take care.